Eh? I thought I'd create a little bit of a mood for the video today, but it's kind of weak and it kind of makes a lot of noise, so I think I'll just get rid of it. But it's cool though. It was cool. Alright, this was a bad idea. Say goodbye. Cheers. Just kidding. Bye. Okay, I'm back. Hi. Cheers. Hello, 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 my friends. It is me. It is Sue. Today we'll be doing a June/May wrap up because I didn't do it in May because I had only read 2 books then, and yes, that was shameful to me as a booktuber. So I decided that I would just wait till June to do that wrap up, and yeah. So now I read a grand total of 7 books, not even double digits, but it's fine. We'll do it anyway. Yeah. Okay. Let's just start the video right now. Let's go. Let's start. I read a total, as I said before, of 7 books in the months of May and June, and 2 of them were actually audiobooks, which I feel is as good as consuming the story of a normal book. Sometimes it's just easier to read audiobooks, like you can do other things while listening to audiobooks. Alright, the very first book that I read that kind of got me back into reading again and got me back into the mood of reading again is none other than the king of fantasy himself, Brandon Sanderson. Okay, maybe he's not the king, maybe he's like the prince, the high prince of fantasy. It's the last book of the Miss Bond trilogy, The Hero of Ages. So if you haven't heard of the Miss Bond trilogy, the very first book is basically set in the premise of if the bad guy wins. It's kind of like a dystopian society. First book in the series basically is like a heist type story where they kind of take over the villain. It was very exhilarating. It was a great first read, and I read that 5 years ago, and now finally after 5 years I finished reading the last book, and it was so good. It's one of those books where you kind of just burst out crying spontaneously, and it was brilliant. I really highly recommend this book. It's very easy to read. Brandon Sanderson's writing is, I like to describe it as like watching a movie, and you can envision it in your mind like a movie. I always recommend Brandon Sanderson, always, so this was a good one. Because I had a mourning period for Miss Bond, the second book that I read in May was The Alloy of Law, also by Brandon Sanderson. The Alloy of Law is basically a second era Miss Bond series, so it is set 300 years after the events of the first Miss Bond trilogy. The society has changed and it's evolved, and like this kind of follows the trope of like an old western, but with an amazing magic system, which is also present in the first trilogy, and it's probably one of the best things about the series itself, which is the magic system is just so cool. Basically how it works is that people who have the gift of allomancy will ingest metals, and they will burn these metals in order for them to use their abilities. So yeah, it's really cool the way that it's used, and it's like a hard magic system, so there are a lot of laws in place for it. There are limitations, and that's just what makes it so unique and interesting. This book follows a different set of characters, and it's definitely a lot more lighthearted than the first series. This was the shortest book out of all of them as well, and it was an easy read to go through. I would say it wasn't as great as the original series, at least not yet, but it's definitely funnier. It has a more like dynamic tone to it rather than in the first trilogy, where the tone is definitely a lot more somber, which is fine. I like that too. It's more epic. It basically follows a nobleman who had gone out into the roughs, which is kind of akin to the Wild Wild West in our society. So yeah, and he has, because his uncle has died, he has to take over the estate from this uncle, and he has to learn how to be a nobleman again. And yeah, so it kind of just follows him. It's kind of like a mystery vibe kind of thing, but not really. It's alright. You kind of are intrigued by the mystery, but it's not as thrilling as a real mystery would be, I think. So yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was alright. The next book that I read / listened to was Little Woman by Louisa May Alcott. Oh, such a good book. So the first classic that I read in a while. All the other classics that I've ever read were for school. So this is, I think, the first classic I read like voluntarily and I actually got through. So I think that says a lot. Maybe it's because I audiobooked it, but yeah. I have a whole video about it. It's like 20 minutes long. So if you actually want to hear me rambling about it, you can just go and listen to my actual video if you want. But if not, I can just tell you that the writing is just very warm and very kind of straightforward. And the most intriguing thing about the book is its characters and like how you get to know the characters and whether you like them or not. And it's kind of just like following them on their journey, as a lot of classics are, I think. So yeah, it's good. It's good. It's like what everybody says it is. It's good. So I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Go check my video out if you really want to hear me ramble about it more. I didn't tell you the plot of Little Woman. Okay, Little Woman follows the story and the coming of age of the 4 March sisters and their plucky little friend, Laurie. Yeah, that's the whole plot, so go read it. Alright, the next book I read is this, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I also did another review on this. This I loved. I've kissed it so many times. Have you ever felt the need to like embrace a book because you just love it so much? That's how I felt about this book. I'm not even kidding. Like while I was reading it, I literally, okay, this is a live reenactment of how I was reading it. It's not a person, so it's hard. Yeah. So that's this book. It's a historical fiction and it kind of follows the lives of a French girl who's blind in France and a German boy who goes to a school that's kind of like akin to Hitler Youth. They don't really mention Hitler Youth, I think, but you kind of know that it is. The plot basically follows the story of these 2 main characters and it kind of interweaves into one big pleasant story. Okay, not that pleasant, it's a bit tragic, but yeah, it's beautiful and I would say it's a read that would make you feel happy. You know how there are some reads that challenge you? This is not one of them. It just makes you feel great inside when you read it, and it's just very poignant and beautiful, and I love this book so much. One of my favorites. 5 out of 5 stars. All right, go watch my video on it. I please, thanks. It's like after every book I talk about, I reward myself with this. It's so good, guys. After that, I read To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Yes, that was a good book. That was a good book. And I don't know why it took me this long to read it, but there was a trigger, and that trigger is Kieran from KD Books. He's one of the first people that I met on BookTube, one of the first people who commented, I think, on my very first BookTube newbie tag, and like he said one of his top 3 favorite books was To Kill a Mockingbird, and I believed him that it was good, so I read it. And yeah, thank you, Kieran. You've been such a friendly presence and such a comfort to me in this community, so thank you. Please go follow him. I think he follow him. Please go subscribe to him. I think he almost has like 500 subscribers, so get him to that number, please. Thank you. To Kill a Mockingbird. So do I need to explain the plot? Doesn't everybody know it? Okay. To Kill a Mockingbird is basically, it's a coming of age story about this girl who lives in the 1930s in like the South in America, and her father is basically defending a black person who was accused of raping a white girl. You kind of don't really see that until like the middle of the book, and it is riveting. I feel like that is the most riveting part of the story. But I think what really is the charming thing about it is you get to slowly explore the life of a girl through the eyes of a child. She slowly sees the world for what it is in some of its ugliness, and she has to make a decision at the end, you know, whether she wants to see people as everybody tells her how people should be seen. Oh, that's confusing. You probably didn't get anything out of that. But yeah, it's a good book. It's a classic for a reason. Everybody loves it for a reason. Go read it. And you know, if I did the mid-year freakout tag like everybody else did on BookTube that I didn't do because I only read 7 books this year, I would answer the question of who is your newest fictional crush? Atticus Finch. Now I understand why everybody loves Daddy Eddie, as I call him. Daddy Atty. I'm sorry, my accent, probably you don't understand what I'm saying, but that's what I mean. Oh, I'm such a teenage girl. But like, yeah. I understand the hype now. I understand why everybody loves him, and I understand why everybody hates Ghost and the Watchmen now, because he turns out to be an asshole in the second one. And I'm sad, so I'll never read that, because he's my new fictional crush. He's the kind of father that I want my future husband to be. So I gave it to my boyfriend. Wink wink, Ishrak. I know you're watching this. I gave it to you for a reason. Okay, this book kind of made me reevaluate what I set a rating standard as, because how would you rate like a book 5 out of 5 stars? Is it because you liked it a lot, you enjoyed it, or is it because this book like challenged you or made you feel a certain way or made you think differently? I don't know how to rate books, I realized. Like, I used to just rate it by like how much I enjoyed it, but I think the books that I'm reading now are definitely more challenging and more not meant for you to enjoy it. So I have no idea how to rate books. Please tell me how you do it. I kind of just like kind of go by liking and kind of go by its potential value, and then I'll like mesh it into like in the end it becomes 4 stars or something like that. I don't know. I'm a mess. Alright. Whew, it's getting hot in here. So sick. Okay. So I'd like to mention that I read this book with my lovely, lovely friend, Fina Retty. So, she is this wonderful booktuber, always passionate, always beautiful, has excellent views, excellent taste, might I add. She's beautiful. She is one of my favorite booktubers at the moment, along with Kieran. One of my favorite booktubers at the moment, and I will link her profile down there, and I'll show you her. It's so great to just find friends, you know, on the internet. A place I never thought I would find properly lasting friendships, but yeah, this is gonna last, girl. We gonna do it. We're gonna be happily married in Greece. Please take me to Greece. Yes. The next book that I read after that was what did I read after that? I believe it was Gemini. It's a heavy book, but it took me a day to fly through. Like, I just needed to dedicate one night for me to read this, and I did it. So, Gemini, what is it about? What are you about? It's the sequel of a trilogy called The Illuminae Files, and it is a YA sci-fi trilogy, I believe. It's written by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This world is set many hundreds of years in the future, where humans have colonized other planets and have like flown across the stars into the solar systems and populated planets and stuff. There's this human colony on a planet called Carenza, and a company basically attacks Carenza and kills many people, and this Illuminae group is basically trying to set a case against Baytech, which is the company. And so what each book of this series is a case file compiling the events of what happened and evidence against them. So that's the interesting thing about this series. It's the format. Look at it. So that's not the regular prose that you get in every book that you read ever, as I'm sure you're familiar with. It is like basically video transcripts or like pictures of like a diary entry. Let me search for that diary entry right here. Oh, there's a good one. Diary entry. Ooh, that's so beautiful. Or like conversations like over there, and some of them are kind of raunchy because they're private conversations. And yeah, so that's what this book is about. Yeah, I don't want to give away too much because it's a thrill, it's a ride. You don't expect the things that happen in it. Go read the Illuminae Files first if you haven't read that. But Gemini is so good. I think I like it better than the first one. And okay, I was a little bit turned off by the YA writing of it. Because they are teenagers, like the characters are teenagers, they talk that way. I talk that way, so I don't know why I'm annoyed. Look at me being bougie, but like, nah, I'm not like that. I talk like that, but I was still annoyed when I first read it, because some of the characters were like, oh hello, I really like you, you're so hot. This character is like, but I have a boyfriend, but I knew they would get together anyway. So I was like, why are you pretending? You love each other, you're attracted to each other. But anyway, that was the beginning of the book. Things turned crazy very fast, and it was a wild ride very fast. So from potentially 3 stars, it turned into 5 stars, and I actually loved it so much that I needed to buy the next book immediately. The next day I went to the local bookstore and I got the last book. Spending more money. It was a good change in pace from all the lit fit books I've been reading. And then of course I immediately dove into something that was a bit more classic, I guess. It's like a modern classic according to my friend Kurt Vonnegut, The Science of Titan. That's the next book I read. I audiobooked it actually. I tend to audiobook classics because I always think that I can't get through it. I'll get bored if I read it off the page, which I'm sure I won't. I read The Alchemist like book form, so it should be fine, right? But yeah, anyway, I audiobooked this in one night. It was a good read, interesting read. The Science of Titan is actually one of Kurt Vonnegut's sci-fi books, and it's about a man called Malachi Constant, who is the richest man on Earth in the beginning of the book, and it follows his adventure through space, basically. Yeah, it's a story about religion, I guess, and morality, and it's kind of bleak actually. It was one of those reads that you don't necessarily enjoy. Personally, I don't think I really had a lot of fluffy feelings of like, oh, I love this book so much kind of feelings. It was like a intriguing read. Yeah, my friend loves this book. Basically, my friend gave me this book 3 years ago, and like before we parted from the school that we were in. Let me just like tell you the quote that he put in front of it. He said, "To conversations had and conversations won't had." Yeah, he's a pretentious one. My friend, I love him. Yeah, so he made me read this book, and yeah, it was alright. I enjoyed it enough. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because it just didn't impact me, maybe that the way that it impacted him. And I respect that it's one of his favorite books, but yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was fine. Kurt Vonnegut. Very good. Very good. Is there anything else I need to say? How do I end these things? I don't think I need to say anything more. You're probably already bored of my voice. Like, I know I'll be bored of my voice when I start editing this, but I'm still talking anyway. What's wrong with you? I have a problem with saying goodbye, I guess. You should just watch me finish this drink. Alright, thank you for listening. I'll see you in my next video, which will probably be a haul of the books that I impulsively bought after the end of our quarantine. Alright, so follow all the people that I mentioned today, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye. Bye-bye. So long. Farewell to you, my friends.